for that position to be a weakness.
Okay.
With the dismissal of a couple of players, one of which was an ongoing investigation that had happened with last year in Higgins. I'm sorry. And then, we had another player that went down last year. And, Gator fans, I was kind of upset with Gator fans a little bit when it was announced that he went down because he had a struggle. He had a rough go of it last year. McWilliams did. I'm pretty sure that's his name. I'm sorry if I'm missing it. But it was number 12 for us last year. And during the Gator game, he admittedly got exposed. I mean, the Georgia game. He got exposed in the Georgia game. What I will say is there was absolutely no reason that he should have been on the field last year. When we played Georgia, we were down to 6 defensive backs in that game total. 6 that were out in that game. And so he shouldn't have ever seen the field. I myself was really looking forward to him being able to have like a little bit of a bounce back year and having depth at a position of a player that's already been on the field and already experienced, the hardships of that field. Was never going to be a bad thing. So I felt like it was a loss to us there. Now, we do have, as long as Marco, and every indication from the offseason, it says that he's ready to go, he's 100%. But as long as Wilson can, play like he was prior to his injury, and CJ, we all know what Henderson is about. So it's going to be a tough day for Miami. The question really is going to be, in my opinion, the deciding factor is Pirine. Is he going to be able to run on Miami's defense? Because Wisconsin sure as hell did. And so a good way to stop an aggressive defense is to have a solid run. If they give Pirine any sort of room to run, and then Franks can utilize his targets on the outside, which, in my opinion, this wideout room is probably the deepest that Florida's had since '96. I put them over the 08 Gators. I put them over the 06 Gators. We have not had top to bottom a team that has the talent that our wideout core has. I mean, we've got legitimately seven players that could be starting anywhere in the country. Here's an example of that. Tooney is literally a human joystick, and he's not even starting. That should tell you how deep Florida is. Because I'm sorry, Tooney starts anywhere. You know what I mean? And the fact that we've got Grimes and Jefferson and Swain and Tooney and all these players, it's just going. I feel like Florida has enough weapons where we should be able to, as long as we can get as long as our run defense will step up, I think we're going to be good. A big loss for Miami this year was their defensive lineman, Nasta. He's not going to be playing. And I don't know if the rumors are true about Thomas or not. If Thomas is down, they're going to have some trouble being able to defend us.
So I have the schedule sitting in front of me. The only games I see, Bud, on the schedule that I think are going to be tough, obviously Georgia. That's a game that I think all of us pencil in every year. I mean, I think all of us wish we could all go to Jacksonville and watch that game in person. But I mean, LSU will be tough. I know we beat them last year. And I mean, is Auburn going to do anything this year? Because I don't – Kentucky shocked us last year. I don't see that happening again this year. Tennessee, I'm not too worried about. That's the one thing.
I feel sorry for Kentucky this year. And Florida's going to come out for Kentucky. Yeah. I really do feel
well, and I agree with you on that one. And I mean, the Tennessee game, again, I'm not worried about that game either. That's the one team in the SEC that I wish would just disappear, in my opinion. That is the only team in the SEC that I don't like. I don't hate anybody. I'm not going to say hate. That's a strong word to use. I just don't like Tennessee. So every year I used to have a neighbor who was a big Volunteer fan, and when the Gators beat them, I would always just boast to know. And most of the time they did, because not a lot of people know when Peyton Manning was at Tennessee, he never beat Florida. 4 years he was there.
It's actually the only team that Peyton Manning ever played that he never beat.
Yeah, true.
NFL and college. NFL and college.
So I keep reading an article about Auburn and how Gus Malzahn is on the hot seat. Do you think he's on the hot seat in Auburn? Do you think that this is it?
I personally, I think that's been ongoing. I think that's been an ongoing rhetoric for a couple of years, and I think Auburn is okay with where they're at. I really do think that they're okay. They're going to be a tough team. That's going to be when I rank our opponents. Say if we're ranking the opponents on our schedule on like the best to last. I have Auburn as the third best team that we play this year.
Behind
I believe
Georgia.
I believe Georgia and LSU is kind of a toss-up. I'm a little more worried about the LSU game than I am for the Georgia game. I kind of feel Georgia's going to have a fall-off this year, and I know a lot of people will probably object to that statement. But when you have only one weapon at wide receiver that's even halfway proven, and the rest of the squad isn't there, it's going to be a rough year to put up points. Now, please do not think that I don't think that they're going to be a top 15 team. They are, because they have their offensive line and they have Swift, which is one of the best running backs in the SEC, possibly the nation. So they're still going to be good. They're still going to be good. But what I would say is last year when you watched that game against Florida, we were exposed in the air. It's what hurt us. And it unfortunately, being named DBU, that was kind of a slap in our face to see our defense get passed on. I do not feel that Fromm, as long as we're healthy, I do not feel that Fromm throws on Florida this year. I just don't see it. So 8 returning starters on the defense. Florida's defense is not taking a step back. I do not believe that at the very least. So I am going to say this. If you look at our schedule, I really feel that, if worst case scenario, if we lose to Georgia, we lose to LSU. I believe out of the top 3 teams that we play, which I already said, Georgia, LSU, Auburn, I believe we at least, in the very least, we win one of those games. In the very least. So looking at this going forward, if we can beat Georgia, a loss to LSU will not hurt us when it comes to the grand scheme of things. But we cannot take 3 losses in the SEC. If we take 3 losses in the SEC, it's a bowl game, and that's all we're looking for. But I would say that a big thing for Florida fans this year is the fact that we actually have a chance to reclaim the Florida Cup. And that I really do. I'm going to go ahead and say that I really do think that we will beat Miami and FSU both this year.
I can't agree with you more. I can't agree with you more. I mean, I think everybody looks – this Saturday is going to be a test for the Gators. I really honestly can say that. It's going to be a test, but I don't think it's going to be one that they're going to lose. And as far as Florida State goes, they're a team that really was kind of an abomination a year ago, in my opinion. They were discombobulated, and I don't know what Willie Taggart's done anything to make that team any better, because last year their problems were on the offensive and defensive line, and they're not going to win in the ACC.
If anything, they lost more. Lost more because they lost Christmas. Christmas was. I am the biggest fan. Even though he's an FSU player, I'm going to be honest with you. He's my favorite FSU player ever to play. He's nasty, man. He really is, and he's a great person off the field. I've actually had the honor of meeting him, and it's one of the only FSU players that I've actually got excited that I had a chance to meet. So I believe that I believe it's going to be tough. I don't want to go as far as to say that I think that FSU is going to have a losing season this year. I think they'll turn it around against the teams that they should beat. And depending on how Miami shows up in this Florida game, because to be honest with you, it can go one of 2 ways. If Miami shows up and they play a good game against Florida, I'm not going to go as far as say as they're going to beat Florida, but they play a good game against Florida. That'll be a tone setter going through the rest of the season where they almost be the top 10 team. They can do something. Now, started off as in last year against LSU with Miami. LSU trounced Miami, and they never recovered. And so with that said, if Florida comes out and we score 40-plus on Miami, I say Florida State beats Miami this year. And that might be a statement that a lot of people are, kind of up in the air with. Mm-hmm. But I'm just going to go out there and say that I really do not feel that I really do not feel that Florida State is going to have as bad as a year. And my number one example of that why is that I don't believe that Willie Taggart is a very good head football coach.
Okay.
But I believe he kind of reminds me of a Ron Zook. Excellent at recruiting, very good for his players. Like, the players love him, and they know that he has their back. But he needs a solid understaff. He needs a solid staff underneath him. And they went out and they got themselves a good offensive coordinator in the offseason. And from every indication from what I've been told from Florida State fans and from what I've read is that Willie Taggart hasn't touched the offense at all this year. And I think I think that's the best decision he can make. I think with a new offensive coordinator and just the simple fact that it's Florida State, man. They had 5-star recruits all across that roster last year. So it was obvious that it was a little bit. Now I will say this. Their offensive line was decimated. They transferred out. I think by the end of the year, the best starter that they had was like a 2-star, coming out of high school. So a lot of people want to say, oh, they were covered in 5 stars. Well, they were until they transferred out, until the injuries, until this, that, and other. And so it was a major problem for them last year. So you're right. The defensive line and the offensive line, I don't see has made too many improvements. But with a quality staff underneath Taggart that knows good offensive ball, I think they recover a little bit. I'd say they win 8-9 games this year.
Okay. Now, but you're not worried about the Missouri game because that team seems to play the Gators tough. Every year since Missouri's joined the
I'm going to be honest with you.
Tough game.
The Missouri game is always the game that the Florida Gators are never worried about, and it's the game that we always get smacked in the damn mouth and realize, okay, we're still human. You know what I mean? Because I don't know what it is about. Like, I don't know if you remember me posting this after the game last year, but I literally said there's very few times in history that I'm at a loss for words about football. But what the hell just happened? You know what I mean? And that was my reaction to the Missouri game last year. Do I feel that Florida players remember how bad it sucked to lose to Missouri last year in the Swamp? I do. And do I feel that they're going to be coming back and looking for a reason to smack them in the mouth? I do. I just don't feel with the loss that Missouri took. Remember, Missouri lost their quarterback last year.
Drew Lock.
And so he went on to he's in the NFL. I don't think Missouri is going to be as good this year. I would go as far as to say that I think South Carolina is going to be tougher than Missouri this year.
But see, though, speaking of South Carolina, I read today on BleacherReport.com that he's on the hot seat. Muschamps on the hot seat. Do you agree with that? Being in South Carolina, do you agree that he's on?
I don't see how he could. I don't see how he could be. I mean, because if you look at the history, go back. Okay, before Muschamp, you had Spurrier. Spurrier didn't really play that well against Florida. He beat him. I can't remember how many times. I think it was only once in his career against Florida. South Carolina that he beat him. But I don't think, I really don't feel that South Carolina's to the point where they feel like, okay, we're such a powerhouse that we need to get rid of Will Muschamp. I kind of feel like South Carolina's they're where they feel like they should be. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to say that, of course they're not trying to compete for a national championship, because in the end, that's what everybody's trying to compete for. But when you're being realistic, as long as South Carolina's still making bowl games and they're still, actually competing in bowl games, I think it would take a total loss of like a 4-7, season, something like a 4-8 season, something like that to put them on the hot seat. I really don't believe that Muschamp's, that's me personally. I don't know. I could be out of the loop because I'm not going to lie. I don't cover South Carolina football that much. But
Mhm.
I will say that I don't believe Muschamp's a good coach, man. I don't believe